This is a CBS News special report. I'm Kelly O'Grady. The Pentagon is currently locked down due to a hazmat situation. Now, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell tells CBS News the Pentagon systems detected a, quote, air quality issue. 2 floors have been evacuated and a shelter-in-place order is in effect right now. Joining us is CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. Actually, I'm not sure if it is Sam. Is that you on the phone?
I'm here, yes, thank you.
All right, actually, we're going to go to Ellie Watson first. So, Ellie, talk to me about the situation on the ground right now. We know that this is developing, but you have some reporting to share.
Yeah, Kelly, speaking to sources in the building, some have been told to evacuate, haven't been really given a reason why, but were told to evacuate. They did, and then others have been told to shelter in place. We got this alert from the Arlington Fire Department saying that they do have a hazmat unit on the scene, and we did get confirmation from Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell that they are investigating what could be an air quality issue, but the exact situation is unknown. Some have had to evacuate, others are remaining in the building, but sheltering in place, not allowed to leave their offices. We're told that this has affected, for the most part, the south side of the building, several floors, and potentially corridors. Remember, Kelly, the Pentagon is massive, 17 miles. Just the south side that we know of has had some people evacuate, while others in the building are being told to shelter in place.
Right, thousands of people that are there every single day. Ellie, do we know exactly where this was first detected, this air quality issue? You mentioned the south side of the building, but do we have any more specifics at the moment?
We don't at the moment. The individuals I've talked to didn't see the specific situation or smell anything, but they were told to evacuate on the south side of the building and did pass Pentagon police officers. The Pentagon has its own police force who were at different doors and corridors and wearing face masks.
And so, Ellie, I mean, you're very familiar with the Pentagon building. Obviously, there is no indication right now that this is anything nefarious. But in terms of access to the Pentagon, I mean, no person can just walk in there, right? Just sort of paint a picture for us of what it even takes to get into the building.
There is only one visitor entrance, and before you can be a visitor to the Pentagon, you have to go through a essentially back check process where they have your personal information. So not everyone can just get into the Pentagon. There are tens of thousands of workers in there, but they have all been cleared with their passes. There are different entrances around the Pentagon, but if anyone were to come in from the outside, it would be just from that visitor entrance, and there would have been security ahead of time.
And so you mentioned sort of a mix of evacuation, shelter in place. I personally have never been to the Pentagon, but it is a windowless building, correct?
It's pretty large, 5 floors, 5 sides, 10 corridors. So, but there are regularly different fire emergency practices, fire drills, so that everyone knows where they're supposed to go in a situation potentially like this or more serious.
All right, Ellie Watson, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to return to CBS News National Security Team Coordinating Producer James Laporta. So, James, obviously the situation is developing. What are you hearing from your sources about what's happening at the Pentagon right now?
Yeah, so we're still gathering details at the moment, but what the little that we know is just before 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, which is the agency responsible for securing and guarding the actual Pentagon grounds, sent out an all-hands email to staff at the Pentagon, telling them to shelter in place. Specifically, this included corridors 4, 5, 6, and 7 from floors 2 to 5 inside the Pentagon, that they were to shelter in place. If they had meetings scheduled, they were told to reschedule those meetings and then make them virtual if they could. It also made clear that they are not to leave their offices to, say, go to the bathroom or anything like that. They are to remain in place, and they are not allowed to leave until the all clear is signaled. Other than that email telling them to shelter in place, from what I'm hearing is that they're not getting much information at all. So just like we're trying in the news media, we're trying to figure out what is exactly going on. People inside the building don't know exactly what's going on either. So that's the latest that I've gotten from people that I've spoke to in the last couple of minutes.
And so in a situation like this, in your experience, what agencies would be involved in responding to a situation?
So like we know, as they said, the hazmat team is in place, is coming to check things out. They would have training in what we call CBRN, which is chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. So they have tactics, techniques, and procedures for testing to rule out any of those things. So, but right now we just don't know. This could be just a precaution or something more serious, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, James Laporta, appreciate you joining. I want to go to CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. So, Sam, and you have tons of experience in this area. You hear a situation like this, that you've got hazmat teams responding, you have people sheltering in place, some have been evacuated. What is your read with the limited information that we have right now?
Well, I think it's important to put this in context. In the first instance, we actually don't know if there is an active hazmat situation. We know that there has been detection about a possible threat related more than likely to chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, or explosive substances. So what we do know is that there are 23,000 people or so that work at the Pentagon who are likely quite worried right now. However, it does appear that the system is working insofar as there is a potential threat detected. Again, that could be an accidental spill of a chemical, for example, or it could be somebody introducing a prohibited substance into the Pentagon. We know that there was detection. We know that emergency protocols seem to have been followed. Individuals were alerted about a potential situation. They were told to shelter in place or to evacuate, and emergency responders were on the scene quite quickly, and that is a multi-agency response between federal officials as well as state and local officials, including, for example, Arlington County Emergency Services and Fire Department, among others. So this multi-layered response system seems to be working while we work to ascertain what, if any, hazardous substance has been introduced into the Pentagon.
And just to recap for those that are just joining us, we are talking about a situation at the Pentagon. It is on lockdown. There are some folks that have been evacuated, some that are sheltering in place. There is an air quality detection issue. We are talking to Samantha Vinograd right now. So, Sam, in a situation like this, you just laid out for us, it does seem that security protocols have been followed. Is there any concern about danger or contamination to anyone outside the Pentagon? I would imagine it's fairly isolated, but what would be your read in this situation?
Kelly, at this point, we don't have any indication of a broader public safety concern. However, I do want to stress that we just don't know a lot right now. Again, we don't know if there's actually a hazardous substance that has been released into the Pentagon. If it has, we don't know if that happened accidentally because of a potential accidental spill, or if there was some sort of bad actor that brought that substance into the Pentagon. So we don't really know what, if anything, needs to or has been contained. We should pay attention to what federal, state, and local officials are putting on social media. So, for example, the Arlington County Fire Department and EMS should be advising the public about any broader public safety concerns. And we should hear about those sooner rather than later as these trained professionals conduct their work. I do want to emphasize that the individuals responding to this incident practice for this regularly. So there are a series of drills that are performed regularly, exercises with Pentagon personnel, people working there about what to do in these situations, and drills between, again, these various levels of responders, federal, state, and local. So the communications coming out of these officials' social media accounts will be critical. And, of course, we are thinking about all the people currently sheltering in place in the Pentagon who are waiting to hear if a hazardous substance has been released. There's just a very broad range of possibilities that could trigger these air detection systems, set off these alarms, and lead to this kind of response. So we shouldn't jump to any conclusions because there's so many hypotheticals here, but should feel pretty good that first responders responded so quickly and that the air detection systems activated and led to an appropriate response as far as we can tell.
This is why I always appreciate talking to you in these kinds of situations, Sam, because You lay out what we do and what we don't know and what we cannot speculate. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go back to Ellie Watson. So, Ellie, you mentioned the south wing of the Pentagon. Where specifically is the Secretary of Defense's office? Would this have been impacted, by this evacuation or shelter in place at all?
From what we know so far, Kelly, the simple answer is we don't think so. The secretary is on the river side of the entrance on the 3rd floor, but away from the corridors that have been told to shelter in place. We're told the whole building is kind of taking this shelter in place seriously, but as far as we know, the floors that have actually had to evacuate in the corridors are on a different side of the building. The different service branches kind of are spread around the building, and so you have different services on the south side where we think this potential incident or potential danger was first discovered. The secretary is on the riverside facing Washington, D.C. with a view of the monument and the river. We think that this incident, when first detected, was on a different side of the Pentagon.
Okay, appreciate the context and the update there, Ellie. I want to bring in Elliot Ackerman. He is a CBS News contributor. Elliot, you have actually worked in the Pentagon before, so you're hearing this information as it's developing. We have the shelter in place, the evacuation for some. You just heard Ellie talk about specifically, where, at least at the moment, we can understand where this first was detected. So what's your first reaction upon hearing this?
Well, my first reaction, for those who aren't familiar with the Pentagon, I mean, it is an absolutely vast building. All of the offices have significant security protocols that I imagine they are engaging with right now. So there are probably evacuations going on in parts of the building that have nothing to do with this incident, and where people are sheltering in place. I imagine there's a very methodical process in place right now to get those people out of the building safely.
And so we, again, do not know. We know that this is an air quality detection issue. We do not know what kind of substance or anything at this point. But you hear that there's hazmat teams there. What right now would they be doing? You have so many people, as you mentioned, that are without information who are in the building right now. But for that team that's there, what would you expect that they are doing at this very moment?
Well, they're going to be going through a set of procedures that are extremely well rehearsed. And I think first and foremost is going to be trying to understand, the nature of the threat. So being extremely methodical in their testing, in assessing the situation, and in making sure that everyone who could be affected by this incident is safe. And then I think gradually they'll be figuring out how to mitigate that threat and how to get people who are inside the Pentagon out of the building safely.
And so we talked with Ellie about this a little bit, but in your own experience, I mean, this is an incredibly secure building. Who gets in there? What is the protocol for someone to actually enter the building?
Well, I think, it basically has security protocols that are, equal to, if not higher than what you would see at an airport. And although a huge amount of people work at the Pentagon, many of those enhanced security protocols were put in place after September 11th. So it's tough to speculate, if this came in and how it came in from an outside point of view. But the security there is pretty tight. It's not easy to get in the Pentagon if you're not authorized personnel.
Yeah, Elliot, I also want to ask you, I mean, we are learning this information as it is coming in. What would be your concern? What could they be looking for in this moment? They're obviously trying to detect whether this is dangerous or not dangerous, but what would be your concern here?
So I think any of the first responders here absolutely need to be treating this incident with the highest levels of concern. So, we have to assume that this is some type of a real threat, some type of a, chemical weapon. But that's going to take time to understand what this is. And I think, obviously, there's a lot of confusion, as we can see in our own reporting, trying to understand exactly what's going on. And I think the first thing those first responders are going to be doing is going to be trying to mitigate that confusion and understand exactly what the nature of the threat is that they're facing. Obviously, the U.S. is at war right now with Iran. I mean, it's easy to speculate of all the many things this could be, but the first thing that has to happen is those first responders need to figure out exactly what is causing this problem.
All right, Elliot, really appreciate you joining us and giving your perspective and some context of the situation.